Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. And this time we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is so important. It's about men and their spectrum of emotions and how they allow themselves to feel or how they don't allow themselves to feel. And my guest today is Leslie. And I think that Leslie is the perfect person for this because a few months ago, well, actually, I know Leslie, and we've had conversations about this kind of topic, but he also wrote this article that I thought was so perfect. It hit everything spot on about emotions and toxic masculinity and how men perform and different things. And I felt like that article was just so good. And I was like, yeah, he has to be the guest. So let me just and let you introduce yourself, and then we can just move forward.
All right, perfect. So for everyone watching, my name is Leslie Achonma. I'm currently I currently work in IT. I live in New York City, and I'm Nigerian. And I guess sort of a background how my sort of journey with masculinity actually started was, I lived with my mom, who was a single mom for a while. And I guess through her, she sort of taught me her own image of masculinity due to certain, I would say, failures from her previous marriage. So I guess that's how my journey of masculinity started. So yeah, that's me.
Well, I mean, you just jumped right into it. So I'm like, I'll just follow your lead. But I guess
Okay.
I need to give a little bit of introduction of why I chose this topic, because I feel like you kind of mentioned this in your article about being in our 20s and being reflective about what we've learned and what we're trying to change. And I think I'm not even a guy, but I'm definitely able to recognize that there are a lot of things that I think men are struggling with based on society's portrayal or basically guidelines of what a man is. And I felt like this is a show where I need to have a guy come on and just speak for the guys from experience, but also speak from a perspective of I've changed or I've allowed myself to be who I am fully. And I think that I feel like when I was reading your article, right, you've mentioned toxic masculinity, right, and I was doing research about this topic and everything. And there was this article that I was reading, and they were just saying how there's four main areas of what masculinity is, especially in America. And in your article, you said it, it's the fact that you have to be masculine, ambitious, you have to be this cool guy, and you have to be no emotion, you have to be so stoic. And I wish this was a topic that I could talk about every common area, but I want to focus on emotion. So you already said it, your mom kind of taught you about emotions, and you wrote that also in your article. So tell me what your mom taught you. What did she tell you? What were some of her teachings?
Yeah, so I guess before I actually get into that, right, I need to talk about, my mom's marriage as well, right? So I guess, my mom was in a particular marriage where she was with someone that wasn't really as expressive, someone that wasn't really showed, how he was feeling. And sometimes that was very frustrating, Then I guess just through her experiences, she taught me what her image of a man should be. It was just me, my sister, and my mom's just together, And whenever something in my life had, brought me down, or if I was feeling bad about it, right? Something that you may see in the TV, sometimes it's man up, don't be a sissy, all that stuff, right? But my mom took a different approach where it came about tell me how you feel, talk to me, what's going on. And there's some times when I just used to cry and just legit just tell her how I'm feeling, I guess just, being a kid back in the day, with a name called being named Leslie, with the African last name, I was an easy target. So, I was picked on a lot in school. My mom just used to, just tell me, just to say, tell me how you feel. And that's when I sort of got really, I found being vulnerable easy in any sort of relationship that I was in. So that's why, I guess showing emotion wasn't really a hard thing for me to do.
So how young were you? Like I remember you were saying that you were sent back to Nigeria at a point in time.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that when you were being taught like how to actually express yourself, or was that prior to that? Like,
That's when I started to come way more close with my mom, and she just used to, give me closure. Being alone in Nigeria, it was extremely tough, and the only person I found myself expressing myself to was my mother. And I'll just basically tell her how I feel. I'll cry on the phone, legit just say like, hey, I'm missing y'all. And, it was just very easy for me to be very vulnerable. And I guess also during that stage, I also discovered that many other men like my age found it hard to be very vulnerable with people. So I guess that was sort of a shock to me as well when I was there.
wow. I mean, I feel like even though I knew this, just hearing you repeat it sounds like a very different experience
Yeah.
from most of the people that
Uh,
I know. Like their experience wasn't very supportive of expressing emotion. Like even just within my own household, I've seen how the guys in my family were raised, or even my dad. Like my dad is not somebody who, at his big age, he cannot like show emotion. Like it's something that he keeps very hidden. And as
mhm.
I told you, like I was doing some research, and I feel like with men, this the reason that it becomes toxic, or that this portrayal of masculinity has become toxic and the performance of it is now toxic, is because it affects so many areas of like a guy's life. And I think it can affect you in the workplace, it can affect you as a parent, it can affect you as a family member, a boyfriend, a husband, it can affect you, your mental health, your emotional health. So I'm just feeling like, wow. But like, what do you think about that? I mean, I know that you didn't grow up being told that, but you were able to observe and see that this is what was being pushed out there to boys and men and teenagers and so on.
So I guess my issue that I've always had was that people only follow one sort of like they only follow one sort of spectrum when it comes to masculinity, right? And people are not unable to sort of define what masculinity means to them, right? Because what my definition of masculinity may not be another person's definition of masculinity. But the issue is that every single guy is following, and to be completely honest, some women as well, they're following one particular image of masculinity, which is sold to us, right? When you look at commercials, like let's say for example, when you look at um, a commercial for a car, or if you look for a commercial concerning cologne or something, right? What's the image of the man? Very handsome, very successful, very what's the word? Very mysterious, all that stuff, right? So they're able to attract the ladies and all that, right? We're only sold that particular image of masculinity, and that's what guys and some women follow. And I find that so detrimental because us as men, we're so unable to sort of define what masculinity means to us.
Mm.
And, it's unfortunate that is actually, indirectly being taught to us. That means we're unable to sort of, unable to sort of like stay true to ourselves because we're always trying to like fake an image, right? And before I even came to Nigeria, right, I found myself faking an image, which ultimately led to me being sent back to Nigeria. So like, I was involved in a lot of stuff, bad stuff in New York, where I sort of said, okay, this is what guys do, or this is what I need to do in order to feel protected, or in order to feel, I'm that guy. And I got involved in some stuff I wasn't really supposed to get involved in, and that's basically being indirectly taught to us, and unfortunately may be indirectly taught to, our future kids and all. And I guess it's our responsibility to sort of break that sort of generational, like, that generational curse per se, to sort of, teach our boys and teach our girls that, listen, like masculinity is just not one sort of dimension. You know, there is pride of being there's pride in being not there's pride in not being the breadwinner of a home. There's pride in being sort of like working together in a home, like, husband and wife and all that. You don't have to be the sole provider.
Right. A few things stood out to me. I'll probably go in order. So
Okay.
First, you said that women are also following this idea of what a man should be. And I think that it's important to explore that sentence or that statement, because
Hmm.
I have to be able to look in the mirror myself and say that I know I have been guilty of that. I have been guilty
Okay.
of thinking that, well, not necessarily thinking that men shouldn't be emotional. I think who I am, I've always wanted someone who, has an emotional spectrum and is okay with feeling all those different feelings. But I'm just saying, when we talk about men have to be this way, or men have to be this or that, breadwinner, they have to be, muscles, they have to be tall. Like all these little things that I feel like that's something that I think I used to think before I was able to realize, like, okay, people are different. Like, it's no one person is going to be the same as the other person. But I just
Yeah.
want to ask you, like, in your experience in dating, or as a guy, or maybe your sister, or maybe your cousins, like, how does it
Yeah.
feel? How does it present itself? How do women, like, how do we give off that? So, like, how do we give it off so easily that we're also part of the problem? Like, we're also thinking that, go ahead.
I guess I guess it's just like just based on the discussions that I have, right? Like, don't get me wrong, right? I always believe that a man should be able to protect, his own, his family. That's what I believe in, right?
Right.
Um, but I guess in a per se of just like when it comes to dating, one of the things I've noticed, and this is not only women, this is men as well, right? There's this sort of like, what's the word? There's these sort of like tick points that every woman or man needs to check. And since we're only talking about masculinity, I'm just gonna concentrate on men. That they need to be, they have to sort of have this sort of image, right? And all of these image, some of these, some like most of these image are just basically going towards this sort of image, this stereotypical image of what a man should be, right? I guess sometimes I've noticed is that, and this is, and I'm going to say that I'm going to say how some men feel, right? Some men would just want to be accepted on who they are, because sometimes masculinity puts so much pressure on us in order to be a particular man, in order to suit someone, right? What if a man doesn't tick those things? You start feeling very, very insecure about yourself, like, oh, I'm not man enough for this person, or I'm not man enough for in order to move forward in life. You know what I mean? And to be honest, I've basically been in that trap as well, where I felt inadequate as a man because a woman will want something in a man that I don't have, right?
Mm,
And again, it may just be personal preferences.
right.
That's totally fine as well. But we should always be careful in terms of like not really going towards like not really portraying this sort of like image that a man should have all this in order to be determined man enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, that's the way I look at it.
So I guess, what were those things? Like, what were some of the things that you didn't have at the time that you didn't feel, you know?
Oh, you kind of get deep.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Okay.
this. I'll give you an option. You can answer that, or you can answer. Has there ever
Uh,
been a time that you've expressed yourself, or you've been emotionally vulnerable with a woman, and maybe the reaction or the feedback you got from that person just wasn't
yeah, I've been there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have been there. Yo, I've been there where I've sort of like expressed myself to someone. And I guess it wasn't really, what's the word? It was taken as a shock.
suggested?
And I guess that, it was just something where, how am I supposed to be? It was just something where it was just like, oh, wow, okay, this is new. You know what I mean?
Like,
And it
her
didn't,
reaction was like that, or your
what's
reaction?
that?
Whose reaction was like that?
Oh, like the woman's reaction, like, oh, this is new. You know what I mean? I didn't really expect all this or I didn't encounter this. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I've been there. I've been there.
I mean, like, how does that feel? I feel like for you, maybe, and I'm assuming maybe it didn't hit you as hard because you were already getting comfortable or feeling more comfortable just from the way you were raised to have you and show emotion. But I'm just wondering, for a person who has their entire life kept those walls up, tried to be as emotionless as possible, and then, you know, they might open themselves up to someone, and they'll get like a reaction that's very like, okay, it's disheartening. It's like, okay, I'm never doing this again. So I'm wondering, like, how did you
Yeah.
feel? And I'm wondering if it's the same, it's kind of the same thing. Like, if you felt that way, like if you felt like, I just don't want to, you
Do
know,
that anymore.
yeah,
I guess for me, it's just like, yo, like, if you want a successful relationship, right, with anyone, you need to open up.
yeah,
That's just it. Like, that's just mantra. Like, you just need to open up. Like, I feel like those who love the most, or those who are who open themselves up the most, are the ones who are most likely to get hurt the most. And sometimes, like, people who are scared about being hurt, right, which is totally fine, right? But you need to be able to open up in order to have a very, very successful relationship, right? This is for men and this is for women. Like, there's no way you're gonna progress in a relationship. Now, I'm not even talking romantic relationships. I'm talking
yeah.
platonic relationships. I'm talking work relationships. There's no way you're going to move forward if you don't open up. And for me, right, of course, like, I've opened up and of course I've been hurt a couple of times, but it's just like, yo, like, if I sort of close myself to someone who is potentially going to give me the same sort of energy, right? I'm just going to be blocking my blessings. That's just the way I look at it, right? And sometimes at situations, if I get hurt, right, I try to look at it as a lesson, right? Like, hey, you know, this didn't work out. Maybe there are certain flags that I did not see in this person. And you just sort of learn and just move forward.
I'm trying to ask myself, like, where does this come from? Like, where is this pressure? Like, why is it so like prevalent in our community? Now, I feel like when I say our community, I feel like I'm gonna make this a race thing real quick.
Okay.
Say, I think that Black men truly, truly struggle with this as well. I think maybe not just even being open, but just not even understanding that they might have that. I think there's people that don't understand they have a full spectrum of emotions. And I think a
Okay.
lot of times they know only one or two emotions. And that might be because you were stunted from actually exploring and feeling the emotions that would have come up when you were a child or when you're growing and developing. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
ask myself, why is it like that? Like, all these things of what a man has to be, but why is there such focus on just being so emotionless? Like, what does it do? Like, I guess I'm really asking just to hear your thought. Like, what does that do for anyone? I mean, like, you can't show your girl that you love her. You can't show your girl that you're hurt by her. It's like I gotta show that I don't care. Like, why is it? Like, is it a defense mechanism? Is it protecting yourself? Like, I'm really sitting here wondering, because I think, like, I really just have seen this too much, and I'm trying to understand it myself, but I'm not a guy.
Yeah, I guess it all comes to, like, the issue of being seen weak
Mm,
to someone.
okay.
There's some men that sort of, and you know, some women that consider sharing emotion as weak, right? And you don't want to be seen as weak to someone you're talking to, or someone that you're dating, or someone you're potentially gonna, you know, marry or something. You don't want to be seen as weak. And I guess that's just what it goes to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the main issues that people see, some people see sharing emotion as weak. And once we get rid of that sort of stigma that sharing emotion is weak, Black men, you know, will be way more comfortable with sharing how they feel to other people. You know, for me, I don't consider sharing feelings as weak. I consider it as a huge strength. You know what I mean? If I'm able to sort of, you know, share, if I'm able to sort of share my feelings with someone and how I feel about that person, right? That's the strength to me, because again, that's just going to make our relationship stronger. You know what I mean? If we're able to sort of share how we feel to one another, that's going to make our relationship stronger. So it's a strength. But if you're not sharing how you feel, what does that do? That leads to a lot of, you know, unspoken issues. That leads to resentment. that leads to someone leaving a relationship in order to find affection somewhere else.
Mm.
So again, not sharing emotions, that's going to make your relationship weak. But, sharing emotions, again, I consider as a strength is going to make your relationship way more stronger. So that's just the way I look at it. So again, it just goes all the way down to weakness that people consider sharing emotion as weak.
Weakness. That I feel like once you said it, I was like light bulb, duh. Like, of course, that's like that's
Yeah.
how people think when when you share emotion. Have you ever experienced or and know anyone, one of your friends, who've experienced maybe the sense like the feeling that they're holding too much in? I think at a point when you don't, share your emotions, doesn't it become heavy? Doesn't it feel like sometimes you might be wearing a mask to try to like
It becomes baggage, it becomes baggage that you have this sort of issue where you're sort of suppressing how you feel. You're suppressing your feelings. And again, that becomes very, very negative on your mental health, on your physical health. And when you hold everything in, again, that leads to resentment, that leads to resentment to a particular person that has no idea on how you're feeling because you're unable to share it. So that's just the main issue. And I've seen a lot of relationships sort of end because someone chose to sort of like keep their feelings to themselves. And, you know, where they're unable to sort of express themselves. And I'm pretty sure, like, we're getting older, right? I'm pretty sure no one wants to be in a relationship or be in a marriage with someone that's unable to express his or herself, right? So, you know, that's just basically it. That's just basically I've seen a lot of relationships just end because people are unable to sort of express themselves, right? I've seen men cry when their girlfriend left, when their ex-girlfriend left, but when she was asking him ish questions, he couldn't even express himself. I'm like, yo, bro, like, there's your chance. Let's see how you feel. Then boom, it's like, the relationship is done. Why? Because you're unable to express how you felt.
No, it's not funny that your friend was crying, but it's funny that got like that. Why is it that you have to show the emotion after the fact? Like we'll be there, like, hey, talk, like let us know
Yeah.
what's going on, talk to us about your feelings and stuff. And it's like no, like it'll be let me maintain this image, and then because I know like. I already knew that guys at some point are gonna go somewhere, like maybe their friends or their home or in their room, and they're gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna cry now. Now I'm gonna let it
I
out.
miss her. Yeah.
So
Now again, it just goes to weakness, right? Like if like okay, let's say for example, right? Imagine if I was crying in front of my, you know, imagine if I was crying in a relationship, right?
mm-hmm.
You know, imagine if, someone you were talking to, right, was crying in front of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how receptive of that would you be, right? You probably would be receptive, but there's some women are going to be like, yo, like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, I've never seen this man cry before. You know what I mean?